What's good, Raider Nation? Welcome back to Vegas Nation First and 10, your bi-weekly go-to for Raider news and analysis and game analysis right after it happens. Adam Hill and I are live in Cincinnati after another loss, the Raiders' fifth straight loss. They're now 2-7 on the season. Adam, it was not good at all today. 41-24 was the final. It felt like it wasn't even that close, to be perfectly honest with you. Before we get to all the gory details, just want to remind everybody that all Vegas Nation podcasts, including First and 10, are brought to you by the Las Vegas Review-Journal and STN Sports Station Casinos. We thank them for their support. Adam, not a good day at the office, as Antonio Pierce, the head coach, said. A quarterback change. Gardner Minshew gets benched. It was a 31-10 blowout. Into the third quarter. This was an ugly day for the Raiders, and I know you've been preaching the importance of the Raiders continuing to lose to fortify their draft pick. Well, they certainly did that today, and as a result, they're tied with six other teams for the worst record in the league. That ultimately lands them around fifth or sixth in the draft order. That's going to change, obviously, but they're kind of right where you want them to be, or said that they needed to be, Adam Hill.
Yeah, I think in the big picture, like losing is ideal. Like that's what you want to do. But in the small term, one of the things we've talked about is you don't want to get crushed for one. You don't want to get blown out. You want to be competitive, and obviously the players are not on board with this. The players
No.
don't want to tank. The players don't want to lose. First of all, the basics are like nobody likes to lose, but they also like you're talking about drafting players to take their positions. Like they don't want
Exactly.
to do that. They don't
Right.
want to do that, and they want to show up for for their team, for themselves, for everything else. So when we talk about that, players are not doing that. But I think when you look out there today, and Jackson Powers Johnson gave a pretty passionate defense for the fact that they're still fighting and they're still trying, but
Yes, you did.
the results just aren't there. The results just aren't there. I mean, they just have not been good. From coaching to execution to turnovers to red zone. Their overall numbers are not that bad, but when they need a score, they don't get it. Like it's everything. And you saw one of the things. Antonio Pierce after the game, he's just looking for a spark. You put Desmond
Mm-hmm.
Ritter in there, look for a spark. There was no spark. No fire trucks were needed to put out the fire that spark created. Didn't happen. 4 sacks on a 20 dropbacks. No Rusty. Clearly doesn't know the playbook that well, but you're throwing him out there and hoping something happens, and it just didn't happen because that's just what the Raiders are. They're just not a very good team.
Yeah, and I think I kind of focused on that. There's a lot of they left the field today. Their immediate future couldn't be any more cloudy. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be when they resume action against the Miami Dolphins in a couple of weeks. Don't know if Luke Getsy is going to still be the offensive coordinator by then. Pierce did talk about changes are coming. They're going to use this next week, the bye week, to really take a deep dive into themselves and try to figure out what they need to do. And he said everything, under the sun is on the table. They're going to look at everything. And as he said, and he means everything. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now on what this Raiders team is going to look like come Sunday, two Sundays from now when they play the Miami Dolphins. But one thing is not uncertain, Adam Hill, and this is just a bad football team. I think that's the key to the whole thing. They can try different quarterbacks. This year, what's on their roster, it doesn't really change anything. There's coaching decisions that still leave you kind of scratching your head. There's inexplicable long stretches where they can't muster up anything offensively after always starting hot. A day where they scored a touchdown on their first drive. I think that makes it 5 of their last 6 or 4 of their last 5. So they know what to do when they get the opening kickoff or their opening kickoff. But after that, it becomes a big mystery to them. But I think, again, as I said, this is just not a very good football team. And that's really the bottom line of the whole thing.
Yeah, and again, it's the same mistakes. It's the fumbles. It's today, fumble from Desmond Ritter when he sacked, a fumble from Gardner Minshew when he just kind of misplaces a handoff to DJ Turner, that exchange that they had, and those are turned into points the other way. And this is not a. First of all, we just keep saying they're a bad team. They're certainly not good enough to overcome mistakes, and they make mistakes every single game. There's baffling. It didn't matter today necessarily, but there's baffling timeouts in every game. There's just strange game management decisions that are made. It's the same things over and over again. I mean, we could we're not going to do this because we care about you listeners out there. We can just replay our podcast every week, and hey, another game like this, another game like this. This is what like this is just it's what it's become. It's a lot of deja vu, a lot of just seeing the same things over and over. And you can say this is not who you are as a team, but if you're doing the same things every week, this is who you are.
Yeah, and look, there will probably be, as Antonio Pierce talked about last week, a fall guy, and maybe that's Luke Getzey. I don't know that that's going to change anything, Adam. Obviously, a fresh set of eyes, maybe a new vision, a new, play calling rhythm or philosophy, whatever the case might be. But as you said, it just, what are those changes going to really amount to? They've tried just about everything so far. So I don't know that that's going to, change anything. But I saw Mark Davis after the game. Didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I have to wonder. And I know that Ed Graney, our great columnist, was bringing this up. It's been a year basically to the day that Antonio Pierce took over. Remember, he took over last
Halloween.
October 31st on Halloween, right? So we've got a year under our belt. With Antonio Pierce and with the changes that they made, which also, they moved on obviously from Josh McDaniels. They also moved on from the general manager that same day, Dave Ziegler. And I think it's fair to wonder at this point, have they improved in any way since then? Or have they actually gotten worse? In what area have they actually improved under Antonio Pierce and this leadership? And I'm hard pressed to find any area that they're actually better at.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I can't. I mean, tight end.
Yeah, right.
I guess if you want to say that, like if you're just kind of looking for places,
Throwing
I think
darts.
defensive tackle probably. I think they're a little bit better, but I mean these are just individual positions. These aren't like team identity type things. Like no, they can't run the ball. They really can't pass the ball. They turn over all the time. They can't tackle. They can't really force turnovers. Did he get a pick six today? But they don't do any of those things. So I can't think of a place where they're better. They're certainly not better in the standings, which is the main place that you want
Mm-hmm.
to be better. And Antonio Pierce kind of said it today. Like, the record is what it is. It says what it says, and this is not. We talked about the Bengals coming into this game. Their record was misleading. You know,
Yes.
they had won a game at home. They had some fluky losses. They are much better than their record indicates. I don't think you say that about the Raiders. Like they're 2-6, and yeah, 2-7
2 and
now.
7.
They're 2-7, and that's probably what they are. In fact, I would say, if anything, their record is misleading that they're probably worse than that.
They beat a Baltimore Raven team, which I think we're all scratching our heads over. How the heck did they win that game against a good Ravens team that I think is going to make some noise? And Lamar Jackson looks like he's headed to another MVP type season. So you're right. I think this is closer to being a 1-win team than anything else. And again, in the whole scheme of things, when you're talking about a draft pick, and this has nothing to do with the players that are in that locker room, as Adam said, rightfully so, there's nobody in that locker room. They're not trying to lose. That's the thing. They're not tanking. They're not purposely trying to do this. This is all happening organically. And for the betterment of this franchise, it's probably the best thing for them to hit rock bottom and get that, high draft pick to maybe draft their quarterback in the future. But it certainly isn't doing anything good for these players in the locker room. And I do give them credit because I didn't feel like today was any kind of a quit job or anything like that. They're just not well equipped to deal with what they're dealing with. You want to call it bad coaching, you want to call it a talent issue, which I think it's a combination of both of those things. But it obviously doesn't sit well with the players, and there is pride in the locker room, and that's one thing I think both of us can comfortably tell the listeners, and obviously our listeners are Raider fans, that there's nothing like that. I don't think going on in the locker room in terms of guys quitting or anything like that.
No, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, guys are fighting. I mean, a lot of guys didn't finish the game today because they're injured, but they're out there, giving up their bodies, giving up what they can. Like they're trying, and this is not meant as some consolation to fans.
Yeah,
Like, hey, your guys are trying hard. Like I think fans hate that. And they should hate that. Everybody, of course, should be trying. Uh, but yeah, when we say like, hey, it's for the best, you lose. That's for the best in the long run. Obviously, that's not the players trying to lose. It's not even the team trying to lose. Although you tank at an organizational level, not at a player level. You put guys in bad positions or play guys that aren't the best player at their position to try to play for the future instead of winning a game. Like those are things you do organizationally.
right.
But as far as the players on the field, like they're doing what they have. They're giving it their all, and it's not enough. The
Right.
coaching's not good enough.
Absolutely.
The players aren't good enough. Nothing's good.
Let's take a quick break. When we get back, Adam, let's talk about the trade deadline and what changes you might see coming, or Raider fans can expect to see in 2 weeks when they take the field again against the Miami Dolphins. All right. First things first, Adam. Tuesday is the trade deadline. I don't expect the Raiders to be overly active, but the further they fall in the standings, the further out of contention that they fall. Which, let's be honest, they're out of contention at this point. It'll take a miraculous turn of events for them to finish anywhere near the type of wins that they have to be in a playoff push. So let's push that off to the side. Tuesday is the trade deadline. I do think there are some players on this team that could be attractive to other teams. Do you expect the Raiders to listen and potentially make a move at the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect everybody to listen. I think listening is something that every team should do, for sure. I mean, I don't, I know a lot of people talked about like a Colton Miller. Well, he's hurt,
Yeah,
so he was hurt, so that's not going to happen. Like, there's certain guys like that where today, I mean, half the team got hurt, so
yeah,
none of those guys will be available, or they'd be available, but no team would want to trade for somebody that's already hurt. It's not going to happen at
right,
the trade deadline. I know that you've mentioned a name like Jacoby Myers. Sure, he's attractive, but to me, he's not attractive enough to somebody else. Like, I'm not taking a 6th round pick for Jacoby Myers. I'm just not.
no, no,
Like, at that point, you bring him back next year, and he's your number one receiver. We saw today, 100-yard game for Jacoby Myers. I mean,
yeah,
he's capable of that. He's a very good player. I wouldn't just give him away, especially because if I want to bring in a quarterback next year, I want to have a guy who's there as the number one receiver. That's kind of the benefit of having a young quarterback. So you do have a receiver, and you want to know if that quarterback's good. So you have to have a receiver around him.
right,
You can't put a bunch of just average guys around him and say, well, go do something. You want to have him in the best position possible. So I would imagine they're not going to give him away. And I think that's probably about all he would fetch. So I don't think he would make that move. If you look around, like I do, there are people out there that are saying, why don't they trade for a Bryce Young or for a
Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson, somebody like that? Like, I mean, to me, they should. That's what you should do. Even Justin Fields could potentially be out there. Like, you need a quarterback next year. You need a quarterback this year. One of the things in team building that you look at is bringing in a quarterback every year. And I know they did with Desmond Ritter. I know they brought him in. They brought obviously Gardner Minshew before the year. Why not? If you're telling me that, and then I don't think those teams are trading those guys. Bryce Young looked better today. Looked better last week. I imagine that the Panthers are back in on Bryce Young. Richardson, I think that they still love him in Indianapolis, so I don't think they're going to give him up. But I think like, what's the downside? You're going to take a quarterback
Yeah,
in the first round or sign a free agent. Like, bring all these guys in, evaluate all of them,
right.
see what you've got. Like, that's what these games are for.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, so we'll see what happens or doesn't happen on Tuesday. More pertinently for this particular team, and like Adam and I have both said, there's no quit in the Raiders. They're going to try to win games, whether you want them to or not.
Yeah.
At this point, for the overall betterment of this franchise, they are going to try to win, which means that there might be some changes that they make in that objective. So let's start at quarterback. Do you expect to see Desmond Ridder to be the starter against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday? I do, but
I do.
interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, somebody asked me when he got signed, when is he starting, and I said against Miami. That
Yeah,
was that was my thought. For a couple of reasons. I mean, you've got Aiden O'Connell back in a couple of weeks, um, but you know what Gardner Minshew is, right? I mean, he's going to make plays, he's going to make some turnovers, he's going to be kind of wild at times. Like, he's not going to be your quarterback of the future. He's just not.
right.
Could Desmond Ritter be? Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe. Again, this is what I'm talking about with bringing in like a Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson. Who knows? Maybe you find something for him. So maybe he sparks something. Again, he didn't today. 4 sacks and 20 dropbacks, but he'd only been with the team for 10 days. So some of the same questions that popped up about it before popped up again today. But why not give him a game? Why not give
Right,
these guys again? What do you have? You don't have anything to lose.
right.
But in the end, the organization wants to lose, so put them out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think we've solved quarterback. I think Desmond Ridder should get the start against the Miami Dolphins in 2 weeks. What about Luke Getsy? I think that, again, using Antonio Pierce's own words, somebody has to be the fall guy, and it's usually the offensive coordinator. And it felt like listening to and talking to Antonio Pierce after the game today, some changes are coming. And he mentioned coaching, he mentioned play calling. All of those were his words, not our words. We're not trying to throw anything in there that he hasn't already said. I think that there's going to be a change at play caller as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there will be. I don't think there should be
Yeah.
for a couple reasons. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, first of all, even if you just want to say it's his fault, like if you were to tell me all of the offensive problems are Luke Getsy's fault. Luke Getsy's out there, stripping the ball from Gardner Minshew. He's just,
Committing
he's
penalties.
committing penalties, other things. Okay, fine, whatever. If he was that bad, if he is that bad, if he is the reason they're losing, then great. Keep him there.
Yeah.
Again, what I said is organizations tank, right? Teams, like, players don't. So if you think he's that bad, then keep him around. Like, if you don't think he's
Yeah.
going to be successful.
No doubt. No doubt. By the
Yeah.
way, who
But
hired him?
right, but I also don't think it's his. I don't think it's all his fault. I don't think
I
it's.
agree.
I don't think it's even the vast majority his fault. One of the things I think about this team and fans, and it is hard for people if they have a notion about something, a preconceived notion, to say, "Oh, that's still right, but this part is wrong." So if you loved either Aiden O'Connell, which a lot of people did, or Antonio Pierce as the head coach, it's tough to say, "Oh, it's their fault." Like when Aiden was struggling, and oh, it's his fault. No, it's somebody else's. I wanted Antonio Pierce to be the coach. Well, clearly he's good. I was right about that, but maybe it's the offensive coordinator's fault, or maybe it's this other coach's fault. Like you just want to point blame somewhere else to not say that you were wrong about something. So I think that's usually how it goes, and I think a lot of people are rooting for their own sentiments that, oh yeah, I was right about Antonio Pierce, but his offensive coordinator stinks. I think that's where a lot of it comes from. Now I don't think Luke Getsy's doing a great job, but I don't think he'd be my first choice of moves to make right now to make things better. I just think it's, you're going to, be putting what's the old expression, lipstick on a pig, I guess. Like, oh, let's
Yeah.
just change offensive coordinator. For what reason?
Right. Exactly. Well, create a spark, something. Like we said, there's no quit down in the locker room. So they're going to try whatever they feel like they need to try to get this ship righted. I don't think they will. And in the long run, it's probably better off that they don't. Well, that's going to wrap it up from Cincinnati. We are going to be walking over the bridge to Kentucky, which is actually where we're staying here in a little bit. I want to say thanks to Heidi Fang, who's holding down the fort and doing a great job keeping us on track and getting us out on time. I want to say thanks to our listeners and our readers and our subscribers and everybody else that has a hand in this. You're why we do this, and we appreciate you. We'll be back middle of next week to talk about whatever may have happened in terms of any changes that we hear about by then. Maybe there will be a trade. Who knows? Maybe Bryce Young will be with the Raiders by then. I doubt it, but who knows? But we will be back middle of next week. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Sunday or Monday, whenever you're listening to this. Keep your chin up. Better days are ahead at some point for the Raiders, but it doesn't look like that's going to be this year. And for the millionth time, that might be the best thing that happened in the Raiders in a long, long time. It's time for them to get their quarterback of the future. Adam Hill, great job. Thank you so much. Heidi Fang, thank you so much. We'll talk to everybody next week.